Okay, guys. Today we are finally doing some new shocks, front and rear, for the good old 2001 Silverado. As you can see, it's kind of, old Big Blue is kind of dirty. We've been out doing some truck stuff here recently, but this truck, I'm pretty sure it's had the shocks that were installed with the lift kit on it. That's what I'm thinking that's the shocks it has on it, and the lift kit was installed before I even bought the truck, so they're pretty old. So I really think it's time for shocks. It kind of rides rough, but that's to be expected with a lifted truck. So I don't know how much better the ride's going to get from the new shocks, but it should help it. It should help it ride smoother. And I think it's time. I think one of the shocks is bleeding, and they just kind of look shot and old. So we're going to throw some new shocks on the truck today. It's kind of tired. It's kind of late at night. It's kind of dark out and cold, so I went ahead and moved the truck in. So let's go ahead and get to it before it gets too much later. Okay, guys. In doing shocks on this truck, they're easy. And it's going to be, similar for your, like 99 to 07 classic style Suburbans and Silverados. And Sierras and Yukons and all that stuff. So it's a really easy process to do. Up here on the front, it's kind of hard to see, but if you look up under the plastic line, there's a bolt right up there. You can see that thread the bolt goes on. You take that off, you just put a pair of vice grips to hold the threaded part and put a wrench down on the bolt there, and you take that off. And then there's also a bolt down there. So you take that nut and bolt off, and that's what's holding it to the lower arm. And you put the new shock in and torque it down to, I believe, 75 to 85 foot-pounds, something around that neighborhood. So, yeah, front shock super easy. And I'll do that, and then I'll show you the rear shocks. Also wanted to show you before we threw it on the truck so you guys could see it better. This is like how your shock will also come with these grommets and these little metal plates in the snout up here. This is about where that little metal flange is. So basically, this part of shock is going to be below the little metal flange at the top, and this part's going to be on top of that little metal flange. So I just want to show you that, where it's easy to see before it's on the truck. Well, guys, if you're having trouble with the vice grip method I was talking about earlier, you can just kind of do this. Set a wrench on the top bolt there, and use a pipe wrench to grip that cylinder there. I ended up having to do that because it wasn't really working with the vice grip method. So this is a different method you could use to get the front shock off if you're having trouble. Okay, guys, quick tip for putting the shock in. You may have to kind of jack the truck like I did so that the arm travels down a little bit, because sometimes the shock, it's, hard to get it back in there. So I went ahead and did that and got some screwdrivers to kind of pry it up to where the hole's lined, and then tap the bolt through with a mallet and a pin. So just quick tip on how to reinstall these front shocks. Okay, guys, now that we've installed the front, we're going to do the rear. Super easy, just a bolt up there and a bolt right up there. You can't really see it, cross members in the way, but super easy. Now, the trick is, too, on the rear, when you're putting in the new one, you want to go ahead and put one bolt at the top or bottom, and then pull this little, it's like a restraining strap or whatever off, or cut it, and try and line it up really fast and put the bolt through the bottom hole before it stretches, because then if it stretches past the bolt hole, you're going to have to compress it again. Okay guys, we got one shock on the truck, and I've kind of discovered some tips and tricks to it. When I first put the shock on, the bottom end that went on the axle went in perfectly, but this top end was pretty difficult to get on, and I just couldn't even, I kept trying, I couldn't get it on. And I figured out this little metal, I don't know what it's called, it's not the bushing, this is I guess the bushing, maybe this is part of the bushing, but this little metal piece was a little bit too wide. So what I did was I took some of these and I went ahead and I stuck this end in between the little plates, kind of the little bracket thing where the top of the shock mounts. So then you can take it like this and measure it here, and as you can see, this is a little bit too wide. So I've been using this grinder to grind it down a little bit, and once I ground it down, it fit perfectly. Well guys, as you can see, we both got, one on the right's a little bit hard to see, but as you can see, we got both shocks in the rear on, and the front was already done before I started working on the rear. So I think she's all ready for a test drive. So I think what we're gonna go ahead and do is to compare the two shocks. Next, we're gonna show a clip of how the truck rode down a kind of rough dirt road and then a smoother paved road. And then we're going to show another clip with the new shocks and kind of compare them, and then maybe do a little review at the end of how the new shocks feel and if it addressed some of the issues I was looking to resolve with installing new shocks. So we'll get back to you with that. Okay, we're kind of taking off again on this dirt road. You can see the stuff shaking from the rear view mirror, and you can just kind of see everything shaking around in the truck. We'll go onto the rough side a little bit. As you can see, it's a little bit rough. I don't know how well this will pick up on camera, but it rides like your very stereotypical lifted gasser truck, just pretty rough. So after we drive down it like this, put those new Bilstein shocks on it, or show the Bilstein how it rides with the Bilstein shocks after this. It's not the worst ride in the world, but it definitely could be improved. These shocks are pretty old. I would be willing to bet it's what came with the lift kit when the previous owner had the lift kit installed, so it might be a FabTech shock because it's a FabTech kit, so they're probably okay, but still I think these Bilsteins are going to be a little bit better. Everyone seems to really like them online and whatnot. That was a good bump. Oh. Here we'll get a little bit on the pavement too. Well, this is going to be a rough transition here. Oh. Okay guys, we are on the same dirt road, but now we have the new Bilstein shocks. So now that you've seen a clip of the old shocks, we're going to do a clip with the new shocks. And also too, one thing to know about like doing shocks on a truck like this, it's still a lifted gasser, and even if you put some good shocks on it, it's still gonna ride a little bit rough because it's a lifted gasser. And also too, these are, I guess, the Bilsteins, I think they're like off-road shocks. So off-road shocks are going to be a little bit stiff because that's what you want when you're off-road. You know, you don't want the truck just bouncing all over the place. But already putting them on, just driving around town, I had someone else with me in the truck when I took them on the first test drive. They could tell. So yeah, you still have, and these roads are pretty bad. It's kind of a rutted dirt road right now we're on. But it's better. You can already kind of tell it's better. Like, it really would, the truck would really bounce you around. Especially if you hit like a big bump, like you drove over some train tracks or something. But now it's a lot smoother. Like, you still feel some bumps. The truck still rattling a little bit here and there. But it's much more bearable to, you know, go fast. Hope we hit a bad rut there. But you can see it's not too bad. We're cruising along at about 30, 35. And it's, you know, we're not out here about to break our jaws or anything. So it's good. And then you'll see when we get to the road section up ahead, it'll be pretty smooth. So far I'm already really liking the Bilsteins. They're riding pretty good. And the old chocks, when I took them on the truck, you would like push them down and they wouldn't come back up. So those things were pretty shot. At the end of this dirt road here, there should be a decent little bump. We'll hit that with a little bit of speed, see how it feels. A little bit of transition from the dirt to the pavement here. See, that wasn't too bad. And now that we're on the paved road, it's really smooth. Like, you can see the stuff hanging here isn't really even shaking at all or anything. So yeah, these Bilsteins, they're riding really, really good. I'm really happy with them. And these aren't I don't think these are like the 5100 series or like the really fancy ones. These are just literally, I just went on Amazon and bought a set of shocks, Bilstein shocks for Silverado / Sierra 4-wheel drive with a 6-inch lift. So that's where I got them, and that's what they were labeled as. They weren't labeled as anything really fancy. So, and these do the trick. They're doing it much better than those old beat up shocks on here, and I'm pretty happy with them. And when we first started driving them, the truck yesterday, we were actually driving on the road, and it was so smooth, so we drove through a little field kind of, and it was riding really smooth, which normally it'd shake you around pretty good even in a smooth field, so much better. Okay guys, we're on the same road, but with new